Hey everybody, welcome back to All Things MSP. Today we have something special. This is the beginning of a series on how to identify your ideal clients. Because if you don't start and prepare some things for marketing first, then you are going to spend a lot of time, waste a lot of time, a lot of money on leads and clients that don't fit your business. So, of course, I always like to bring an expert along with these because I'm just a guy behind a microphone, right? Who talks to a lot of MSPs. That's the only qualification I really have. And so today I have Tim Fitzpatrick from Rialto Marketing. And Tim, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Eric. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for agreeing to do this series. Now we're doing a series of 3. The overall title is Do This Before Marketing Your MSP. And we've talked about this before. We've had you on the podcast with you, me, and Justin, but we thought that this would be a good idea to dive into in deeper detail. So the first session here that we're going to talk about is who is your customer, or how to quickly identify your ideal clients. So where do we start with this?
Yeah, this is something that a lot of MSPs struggle with. And we've got to hone in on who we're going to focus our marketing efforts towards. Because if we target broadly, it's very expensive, it's incredibly difficult, and it just doesn't make a lot of sense. It's compare it to the shotgun approach versus the sniper approach. We really need to hone in on where we're going to focus our marketing efforts. So the easiest place to start, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We need to look at our existing client base. And I call them the 3 power questions. We need to ask ourselves the 3 power questions. The first one is, who do you love working with? Why in the world do we want to work with clients that make us bang our head against a wall? Like, there's no point. So we want to work with people that we love working with. And conversely, usually when we love working with them, they love working with us as well. So they complement one each other there. Then we need to look at who are our most profitable clients. Here, you don't want to look at just top line revenue. You want to look at gross profit, because sometimes clients that are driving a lot of top line revenue dollars are not nearly as profitable as we think. So we want to make sure they're profitable. And then the third question is, who are we delivering great results for, great outcomes for, right? Those people are going to be incredibly happy. So when we ask ourselves those 3 questions, we end up with a list of clients that check all 3 of those boxes. How much better is our business going to be if we're working with clients day in, day out that we love working with, that are profitable, that we're getting great outcomes for? There are so many benefits down the line to working with people that check all 3 of those boxes. So that's where we start.
So it sounds to me like, it's kind of the 3-legged stool idea, right?
Yep.
Number one, you're picking clients that work easily, create less friction in your business. And then obviously, because at the end of the day, if you're building a business, and even if you're just having a business to support your lifestyle, right? You have to have a certain level of profit. And so if those clients aren't creating the amount of profit that's either going to drive that growth or drive your lifestyle, you need to get rid of them, right? Or not get them in the first place, which is the point of this workshop today. And then also it's those outcomes. And I think outcomes, and you tell me if I'm kind of veering off course here, but I think the outcome has a lot to do with client satisfaction. And it's more than that, I think. And I think you've rightly called it, who are the clients I create the best outcomes for. But I think in terms of client experience, it definitely drives a higher value for client satisfaction. And therefore, you get all the benefits of that client satisfaction, right? You get less churn, you get more referrals, those types of things.
Yep, absolutely. It's when we talk about outcomes, it's, businesses don't work with MSPs for the IT. Like, they could care less about the IT. They want the outcome that the IT infrastructure or support or cybersecurity support gets them, right? And so it's those results and outcomes that they're going to be most happy with, right? And if you're getting them those outcomes, that's what we're looking for.
Yeah, and I'm going to get up on my soapbox here for a second because, and I've said this before in other videos, but outcomes are where the next generation of MSP is living. It is no longer good enough to provide commoditized IT support. You can do that, and you can still have a fairly healthy business, but you're not going to grow with the rest of the economy because the economy now has driven to outcomes rather than just providing IT support.
Yeah, it's you hit the nail on the head. Like, it's commoditized, right? Like, nobody likes to buy IT. They have to buy it because it helps support their business and helps them get where they want to go. You know, it's like insurance. None of us like buying insurance, but we have to buy it. You know, it's the same thing. So we're finding, when we start to dig into this, we're finding ways to step out of that commoditized box into a place where your MSP is the only choice.
Yeah. And now I know we're asking 3 power questions. However, those power questions probably break up into a lot of individual pieces of data that we're collecting. And you've kind of identified 2 types of data that we focus on, and that is demographic data and psychographic data.
Yes.
And I guess my first question to you before we get into the details of those are, what are kind of the definitions of each of those?
Yeah. So demographics is about the numbers, right? Demographics tell you who your clients are. Psychographics gets into their head. It has more to do with how they actually make buying decisions, why they make buying decisions. So we're really understanding what drives them with psychographics. In my opinion, the psychographics are equally, if not more important than the demographics.
So the demographics are more kind of their profile, what they look like.
Yes.
And then the psychographics is how they behave, what they think like.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And, so, you know, the demographics help drive, you know, are they in specific industries? You know, are they early stage companies, mid stage, late stage? Like, where are they in the growth phase? It could be, how large are they, right? A lot of times when I ask MSPs who their ideal clients are, one of the first places they start is, well, you know, they have 20 to 50 seats. Well, that's a demographic. It's one demographic. But that is a demographic number that we might have as we start to look at this. Could be revenue range, right? There's all kinds of data that may come into that. You just want to hone in. You can really go into the weeds here, and I think you want to keep this as simple as possible. You want to have the most important numbers that really start to paint the picture of what they're like.
So what do you think those top numbers are, those top data points in terms of demographics are when you're trying to nail down your ideal client?
Yeah, it's going to vary a little bit by MSP, but if I had to choose some of the ones that I thought were the most important, I would say industry that they're in. I would say company size in some way, shape, or form, whether that's a revenue range or number of seats, right? Because look, if your threshold is, you know, people that are going to bring you at least 50 seats, well, then why do you want to waste your time attracting people below that, right? So you need to think about what you want, and that's going to help determine it. But industry, revenue range, as you start to look at the types of people within those companies, right, that are your main contact. Is it the CF? Is it the CEO? Is it the CTO, CIO? Who is it? Right? Knowing who your main contact and who the influencers in that decision are is important. Those are the top ones that come to my mind. There certainly are a lot of others, and you'll see those start to bubble to the surface as you look for it, as you work through this.
Yeah, because what you're looking for is you're going to look at and I'm probably jumping ahead here a little bit, but you're looking at your existing clients and seeing what demographics they have in common.
Yep. Yeah. You're looking for the similarities where there's overlap. And yes, we will get into this, but typically what ends up happening is people go through this process and they start to see these similarities that they hadn't even thought about before. And so that's why it's so important to go through this and really understand it. And when we once we've looked at the demographics, then we're looking at the psychographics. And the psychographics are, how do they buy? What are the aspirations or goals that they have? What are the problems that they have? The common pain points? How do they go through the buying process, right? Like, how do they actually make buying decisions, and what are their expectations as they work through each phase of potentially working with you? All those things help us get into their head, because with our marketing, when we can get into their head and they see a message that we put out there and they start thinking like, oh my gosh, Eric gets me. Or, was Eric in that meeting that we had last week? Like, that's the kind of stuff you want to have happen. You really want to understand them better than they understand themselves. If you can get to that place, your marketing will be much, much more effective.
Awesome. So that is the content that we had for today. Now, for every single workshop that we're doing, you've also created a worksheet, or
Yes.
in case sometimes more, that go along with this workshop. Explain what the worksheets are that you created for this one.
Yeah. So this one is who's your customer? And there's 3 basic steps that I highlight in the worksheet, right? We talked about them. You analyze your current clients by asking them 3 power questions, examine the demographics and the psychographics of the people that fall into that list, and then identify the patterns and your target groups. And so I've tried to make this as simple as possible so that you can get through it as quickly as possible and start taking action on it. But what typically ends up happening is when we start to look at the patterns and where there are similarities, it starts to make perfect sense, right? Like, I've walked plenty of MSPs through this where they're like, oh my gosh, half of our clients are in the healthcare space, or half of our clients are CPAs, right? And now, focusing on a specific industry vertical is not the only way for you to differentiate and focus as an MSP, but I do believe it is one of the simplest ways to do it.
Yeah, and I would agree with that as well. In fact, a little story, I actually fell into kind of the manufacturing vertical a little bit when I had my MSP, and it happened by accident. But then I realized that if I focused my efforts on that specific vertical, I got better results.
Yeah. Yeah. The marketing down the line becomes much simpler if you can do that.
All right, Tim. Well, thank you very much. I will leave links in the description at the bottom of the video and everything for where you'll be able to download the worksheets from, and join us in the next workshop number 2, where we're going to dig deeper and we're going to talk about the art of ideal client interviews. See you in the next one.